Good afternoon once again, everyone. At this point, we'd like to invite everyone to please join us in the celebration of the 2021 Anesthesia Week, spearheaded by your officers and directors, as well as your memberships of the Philippine Society of Anesthesiologists. Firstly, we'd like to thank everyone who joined us yesterday in our mass. Uh, and for those who attended today, don't log off just yet. We still have a second part to this evening's program on a special lecture webinar from a special guest who will talk about gender sensitivity and how it's useful in upgrading our clinical practice. Tomorrow, we invite you to the Tuesdays with PSA webinar on Wake Up Sleepyhead. Essentially, it's a webinar on procedural sedation for pediatric patients with our guest speaker, Dr. Zoe Luwat Inchong, moderated by Dr. Anne Michelle Avignon Salomon. And we also have several other sessions about financial wellness and uh, on Wednesday. And of course, we also have um, an activity on Friday in cooperation with the Manila Academy of Regional Anesthesia, MARA, as well as the Philippine General Hospital with none other than Dr. Hadsik as our guest speaker. And of course, on Saturday, we have the PSA Interesting Case competition, which will be done through a hybrid format with our speakers presenting with our finalists for this particular competition, um, doing it live at Marco Polo Hotel. But we will provide you with the links to this specific to the competition for you to join us virtually. Other than this, of course, beyond Anesthesia Week celebration, we'd also like to invite everyone to participate in the annual convention of the PSA in celebration of our 70th year uh, this coming December 3, 4, and 5. You're still allowed to register and will be as long and you may get in touch with our secretariat for this particular registration. We're also inviting everyone to please submit their original researches if you wish to join our residence research competition. I believe that the deadline has been extended for everyone. And of course, in as part of our annual convention, we have invited our some foreign speakers as well as our subspecialty societies and special interest groups to give us a particular session. Okay. And now we move on to the second part of our program this evening. It is my honor and privilege to call on a good friend of mine. Uh, our guest speaker is the Assistant Training Officer of the UP Philippine General Hospital Department of Dermatology. He finished a fellowship course on sexually transmitted infections at the Department of STI Control, National Skin Center, Singapore, and has been very active on issues such as LGBT health and HIV awareness. Currently, he is one of the directors of the Philippine LGBT Chamber of Commerce and a member of the UP College of Medicine Gender and Development or GAD Committee. He is also known in social media as the Skin Sensei with over more than 100,000 followers both on his Twitter account as well as his YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest talking about upgrading our clinical practice with gender sensitivity, Dr. Winlove P. Mojica.
Good evening, Carl. Thank you.
Good evening, Winlove.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to PSA. Um, Allow me to share my screen. Okay, so let me begin by saying that there can be no compassion when there is no acknowledgement of suffering. A lot of stigma and discrimination in our society arise because we are oblivious or actively ignore or choose not to acknowledge the suffering of others. Sinasabi na nga ng isang tao na nahihirapan siya, nasasaktan siya, binabaliwala pa rin at dinidismiss. So in your field, if someone says something is painful, is the appropriate answer, nag-iinarte ka lang? Or kasalanan mo yan? There is no compassion in there. So what I'm going to do in this talk today is to help you understand the existence of sexual minorities so you can acknowledge their suffering, our suffering, because I'm part of this sexual minority, and ultimately improve your service to them, to us. First, I want you to recall a time in your life when you felt that you did not belong. What did you exactly feel? Did you feel shame? Did you feel unloved, abused, insecure, unworthy? What did you do? Just keep the answer to yourself. So for a lot of us, these feelings are usually short-lived with the support of friends and family. But for some, it seems like an endless stage of being an ugly duckling. And like the ugly duckling, which is my favorite story when I was 5 years old, these individuals can decide to commit suicide. And there are some under prolonged stress who consciously or unknowingly destroy themselves, desperately seeking love and acceptance. So I'd like to enlighten you today about a topic that no one wants to discuss because it's mentioned almost always brings about immorality. So I'd like to talk about SOGI, or the updated term now is SOGI SC. SOGI stands for Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity and Expression, with the SC as sexual characteristics. Why do we need to understand sexuality in the concept of SOGI SC, especially for those who are in the healthcare profession? Sexuality is an integral aspect of every individual, and it is more than just the penis or the vagina. It is a complex interaction of hormones, emotions, thoughts, desires, and behavior. When a person feels or perceives that his or her sexuality is not acceptable to the people around him or her, because the people around him or her are accustomed to the man-woman classification, this causes anxiety or a prolonged ugly duckling state. And this prolonged anxiety increases the chances of the development of maladaptive behaviors and depression. These maladaptive behaviors could include alcoholism, chronic smoking, drug use, hypersexuality, which can lead to STIs and HIV. Hypersexuality may ensue because this stressed individual may mistakenly associate acceptance and love with sex. So in this person's conquest for love and acceptance, the person may constantly look for a sexual partner. Because my subspecialty is in STIs and mucocutaneous manifestations of HIV, I'd like to focus on how this misunderstanding of sexuality affects the HIV pandemic in the Philippines. Our biased behavior against people who have different SOGI than ours is fueling an earlier pandemic, which is HIV. In the Philippines, males who have sex with males comprise about 85% of those who have HIV. A lot of MSMs, or males who have sex with males, refuse to receive education, testing, and treatment out of the fear of being labeled as abnormal and immoral. Hindi naman ako bakla eh. Later on, you will understand why these individuals would say so. Sorry. Things like that happen. There are many HIV testing centers who offer quality and sometimes free HIV testing, but stigma and discrimination are big reasons why there are still Filipinos who die of AIDS-related complications due to late diagnosis. Understanding SOGI will not only help control the HIV epidemic, but also address issues such as STIs, teen pregnancy, mental health, and substance use, all of which are interconnected with HIV and sexuality. In another perspective, when a doctor understands SOGI SC, patients feel respected and then trust develops. Patients are then more willing to share more intimate details of their symptoms and expectations. We doctors are then capable of coming up with the right diagnosis and a better treatment plan that is acceptable to that patient. Aside from having a better medical management, understanding SOGSC also has practical and economic implications for the doctor's practice. In this age of false advertisements, fake news, we have to exert extra effort to gain trust from our patient. Trust will prevent us from losing our patients, our allies, to the non-experts. In order to understand sexuality, we must define the following terms: sex, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, and sexual behavior. These terms are independent of each other. They may be related, but they are independent of each other, and they can be considered to be in a scale, except for sexual behavior, which you will later on understand is an activity. These terms have complex definitions, but I've simplified them for this session. So let's begin. So sex. If you are familiar with the Arab era, people will say sex 2 times a day or 3 times a day. But sex is assigned by birth by the doctor, by us. It is commonly based on the visible genitalia. That's the most observable attribute of sex. But it is also a function of the sex chromosomes and the predominant hormones present in an individual. Upon birth, if you are assessed by the doctor to have a penis, meron kang tite, and scrotum, then you are a male. If the doctor sees a vagina or a vulva, then you are female. However, sometimes individuals might have ambiguous genitalia. For example, the penis might be too small, making it hard to distinguish it from a normal but possibly a little bit larger clitoris. Individuals falling into this category are called intersex. And there are many variations of this middle group intersex as more and more scientists and geneticists are studying differences of sexual differentiation. So, sex in general is what you find between your legs, but it can also be based on your chromosomes and predominant hormones. We have 3 types of people under sex. So male, female, intersex. Since sex has anatomic and chromosomal basis, this cannot be changed. So now we have 3 sexes. Let me just emphasize that none of this is more superior than the other. So male, female, intersex, they are all equal. Now, before we understand the other terms, we must understand gender. Is gender interchangeable with sex? No. Gender is the assigned role someone is given to play in society by the people close to that person or by society in general. This is why we give blue items, cars, and toy guns to children who have penises, and pink items, dolls, toy houses, lutu-lutuan to children who have vagina or vulva. So usually based on your anatomy, if you have a penis, people will say you need to be a man. If you have a vulva, then you need to be a woman. So gender is based on what we hear we should be. We have 2 genders, a man and a woman, which is different from a male and a female. The gender role given to a person, however, sometimes do not match the sex of that individual. A person with undescended testes may be mistaken for a woman and be raised as a woman. And this has happened in the past. Now let's proceed to gender identity. Gender identity is someone's personal identification as a man or a woman. If what a person thinks of him or herself matches his or her genitalia, then that person is cisgender. Cis meaning same side. If a person has a penis and he thinks he is a man, he is a cisgender man. If a person has a vagina or vulva and she thinks she is a woman, then she is a cisgender woman. If what the person thinks of himself or herself is not congruent to that person's genitalia, that person is transgender. Example, if a person has a penis and thinks he is a woman, then she is a trans woman. If the person has a vagina or vulva but thinks that she is a man, then he is a trans man. On the other hand, someone who is not yet sure if he or she is a man or a woman is questioning. And we see a lot of teenagers in this stage. They are still not yet sure if they want to be a man or a woman. Well, someone who considers himself or herself neither a man nor a woman is called queer. The new terms will be gender fluid or non-binary. And there are people who will think, I don't care if I'm a man or a woman, I'm a person. As long as I'm a person, you have to respect me. So those are the queer, non-binary, or gender fluid. So gender identity is related to our mind and what we think of ourselves. Nobody can dictate what another person's gender identity is because it has to be declared by that other person. We can be cisgender, transgender, questioning, queer or non-binary, or gender fluid. Now, gender expression. Gender expression is how a person communicates his or her gender identity. The expression can be straightforward, masculine, or feminine. So if you wear a coat and a suit, pants, rubber shoes, short hair, and then big voice, then that is masculine expression. If you have long hair, you wear makeup, skirt, and like pink things, then that is feminine expression. Sometimes the expression is not exactly masculine nor feminine. It can be called androgynous. When I was younger, this was called unisex. A plain, shapeless white shirt with straight cut jeans can be an example of this expression. There was a time in the year 2000 when men were wearing these very loose pants that look like skirt. So that can be called androgynous expression. And sometimes women can be seen wearing coat and tie, but still it looks good on them. So that can be an androgynous expression. Sometimes people express themselves with clothing meant for the opposite sex, and this is called cross-dressing. This is situational, meaning people might cross-dress only on certain occasions only. So, for example, you are invited to a party and you know everybody in that party is your very good friend, then you come in as a beautiful woman if you are a man. But it can also be true that when you're invited to a party and no one knows you in that party, then you can go and wear the expression of the opposite gender. So this is Paulo Ballesteros, a gay man who is mostly in masculine clothing. But sometimes he cross-dresses and you would see him in a character, in a very vavavoom feminine character, here as Gal Gadot or Wonder Woman. I have a psychologist. A psychologist will also consider cross-dressing as part of sexual behavior. But for the purposes of this lecture, we will put cross-dressing as a form of gender expression. So gender expression is how we communicate our gender identity, the way we talk, our clothes, the things we buy to brand ourselves. It can be masculine, feminine, androgynous, or the new terms can also be, the new terms gender fluid and non-binary can be also interchangeable with androgynous. And you could also cross-dress situationally. Now, sexual orientation is defined as who you are sexually or romantically attracted to. If you are attracted to the opposite gender, then you are heterosexual. If you are a man and you are attracted to another man, then you are called gay. If you're a woman and you're attracted to another woman, then you are a lesbian. I know that some of you still use the term homosexual, but in first world countries, they'd like to move away from this definition because they find it derogatory. So you just proceed with gay and lesbian. Okay. If you're attracted to both genders, then you are called bisexual. Now, if you are attracted to everybody, transgender, cisgender, man, woman, male, female, then you are called malande? No. You are called pansexual. Being pansexual is not equivalent to being promiscuous or maharot or malandi or kahit kanino na lang pumapatol. Because you can be attracted to all but commit to only one person and be monogamous. Okay? And there are those who are not sexually attracted to anybody, and they are called asexual. For psychologists, there is another term which is aromantic. You could be sexually involved with somebody, but do not feel any emotions for anybody. So that complicates things. So for the purposes of this lecture, we will use sexual orientation this way. So sexual orientation, therefore, is who makes your heart flutter, who you have feelings for. You could be heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, and asexual. Now, sexual behavior, on the other hand, is an activity and independent of sexual orientation or gender identity. The answer here is not in a scale, it's just yes or no. Do you do this or not? When you have sex with the opposite sex, then you have heterosexual sex. You are called an FSF if you are a female having sex with another female. These terms are important because these are the terms used by our Department of Health to assess the risk of an individual for getting an STI, specifically HIV. Okay? So next, you are called an MSM if you are a male having sex with a male. However, this does not necessarily mean you're attracted to that male. It may be just for fun or for work, similar for FSF. So having said this, a gay man may not necessarily be an MSM because a gay man may not have sex. Example, a gay priest. A priest may be gay but may not engage in sexual activity. So gay is not equivalent to MSM and MSM is not equivalent to gay. So there's a question na kapag nakipagtali ka ba sa isang bakla, bakla ka na rin? Ang sagot ay hindi. Kasi maaring nakikipagtali ka dun sa bakla na yun or dun sa gay person na yun, pero wala kang feelings para sa kanya. Kailan ba nangyayari yan? Usually, if you're a sex worker, if you need to get paid for sex because you need to pay for the education of your children to put food on the table. Okay? So sexual behavior is an act. You can have heterosexual sex, you could be FSF and MSM. For those MSMs who engage in anal sex, there are subcategories. And these subcategories are being used by our Department of Health, again, to identify your risk of contracting certain STIs such as HIV. Now, if you are the insertive partner, you insert your penis to your partner's butt, then you are the top. If you are the one receiving the penis, then you are bottom. If you do both, then that's fun. You sing and dance. You are called versa or versatile. You do both. And then if you don't practice anal sex, but you are happy with oral sex, mutual masturbation, nipple play, and then use of sex toys, you are called a side. Why a side? Because you move to your side to cuddle. So let's give examples to illustrate better these principles, these concepts. And remember that these definitions are independent of each other. For each definition, there is a scale, one side being more male or masculine, the other side being more female or more feminine. Again, they are independent of each other, meaning if your answer in one is blue, it does not necessarily mean everything, all your answers will be in blue. Okay, now I'm going to give examples from using celebrities who have professed or publicly announced their SOGI. So let's practice. This is Angelina King, previously known as Angelo King, car enthusiast and married to Joey Mead King, an MTV VJ. So let's answer. So sex, so Angie has a penis, so male. Gender identity, Angie said, I'm a woman. Okay, so the scale moves to that side. Gender expression, long hair, makeup, and then baba-boom dress. Then the expression is feminine. Now, Angie said that she is only attracted to her wife, Joey Mead King. So, Angie is attracted to women. So, Angie is bakla, gay, correct? No. So, Angie is a lesbian trans woman. Why? So, you see how complicated sexuality could be. Trans woman because born with a penis but thinks she is a woman, so trans woman. And the woman who likes another woman is a lesbian. Kaboom. Next, we have Ice, previously known as Isa Sigera, and married to Lisa Dino, a female, a woman. So let's answer. Ice was born with vulva vagina. Then answer is female. Ice likes is attracted to. Sorry. Ice said that he thinks of himself as a man. So gender identity is man. Gender expression is short hair, a pants, shirt. So expression is masculine. And Ice is in love with his wife, so attracted to women. So Ice is tomboy tibo, lesbian, correct? No. Ice is actually a straight masculine trans man. So again, we need to identify the gender identity of somebody to have a better understanding of someone's sexuality. Just by looking, you will say tibo siya. But if you ask kung ano yung gusto niya, kung ano yung tingin niya sa sarili niya, then the answer will change. So, Ice is a trans man because born with a female genitalia but thinks of himself as a man, so transgender. And the man who likes women is a heterosexual. Correct? Correct. Now, let me give myself as an example. So I was born with a penis, but I won't show you, so I'm male. What do I think of myself? I don't want to have menses. I don't want to have boobs. I'm a man, okay? And my expression is whoop, just up to there. I would say mostly masculine because I'm mostly masculine clothing. But every now and then I can be very flamboyant. I can be very feminine. I can even cross dress. I can go to a party and dress up as a beautiful woman if I feel like doing so. And sexual orientation, there was a time I was attracted to women, but para hindi na ako magulo, I made up my mind and committed, I'm only attracted to men. So, my SOGSC is, I'm a cisgender, mostly masculine, cross-dressing gay man. Okay, can be complicated, right? So let's move to the most important person in this world. You. What about you? What is your SOGI? You have SOGI because you are human and you are breathing and you are alive. And all humans have sexuality. Like I said, everybody has SOGI. You must know yourself first before you can understand others. This way, you can express yourself better and also be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. So let me go back to the scale. So for most of you, your answer will all fall sa blue. And most of you also will answer on the pink side. But I'm sure some of you will have a combination of both. And all of those are fine. There is no right or wrong SOGI. Also, SOGI SC is valid. Like you, and don't forget, like you, others are unique. Your SOGI is unique to you, but the SOGI of others is unique to them. We should accept that people are complex and we cannot categorize them anymore just into two boxes. Hindi na yung pwedeng lalaki at babae na alam natin nung sinaunang panahon. Kung ang iba't ibang mga sakit nga merong spectrum, ganun din ang tao. May spectrum din ang tao. So practical applications, patient forms. So if you apply SOGI principles and include them in your forms, this gives the signal to your patient that you are an inclusive doctor and you have an inclusive institution and that you can be trusted. And again, when somebody trusts you, when a patient trusts you, you'll get a better history in PE, you'll get a better diagnosis, and you'll get, your patient will get better management from you. So for patient forms, legal name and preferred name, always call them with their preferred name because in the Philippines, there is still no law that allows people to change their name. So that's still the ones written in their documents and their IDs, no. But have a separate line stating how they want themselves to be called. Okay, and then gender identity, you can add that, and then pronouns, he, him, his, or she, hers. Ano pa ba? She, hers, he, him, his, she, hers. Basta yun. Nakalimutan ko isa. By doing this, it helps you be sure how the patient wants you to call them. Then you won't have a hard time the second time you meet them, because from my own experience, I've had patients, I call them Ramon Cruz, and then pagpasok niya, babavoom. And then pareho kayo mapapahiya. Diba? So make sure that all of your staff also know how to address your patients, because even if you're gender sensitive, if your staff, if the janitors, the nurses in your clinic are not, then that patient will have a hard time going back to you. Okay. One of the things that you can do, if, for example, in my case, I called my patient Ramon Cruz, and then pumasok, babaeng babae, mukhang beauty contestant, you can ask first, is your surname Cruz? And then, or can I see your ID? And then the next question will be, how do you want to be called? How do you want me to call you? Okay, that's a very practical suggestion. There. So in summary, understanding SOGI will better address these conditions: teen pregnancies, drug use, STIs, HIV in the Philippines. The doctor who understands SOGI is able to offer better care and at the same time keep the loyalty of his or her patients. SOGI SC boils down to respect and trust. SOGI SC components may be related to each other, but they are independent and fluid from each other. And they are independent from each other and are fluid. And don't forget, everybody has SOGI. So I know some of you are laughing right now or frowning, and you might not understand it. Understand this. Sasabihin nyo, ginugulo nyo lang lalo ang mundo. I tell you that if you cannot practice this in your clinics with your patients, you need not go far. You can just start with your own children or your own pamangkins, brothers, sisters, cousin. Because a child that is secured, whatever his or her SOGI is a genuinely happy child. And we want children to be happy, right? And the happy child can easily say no to vice and can focus more on important things like studying hard, growing up as a responsible citizen that can help alleviate the pain of his or her countrymen. And more than a child who'll just keep on asking, does Papa and Mama love me? So I hope when you go home today, you allow your children, your family, to be the swans they truly are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Love, for that enlightening lecture. So essentially, some of our members might be asking why we're having this particular conversation at this point. It's because just like what Dr. Winlove told us from the very start of his lecture, we have to acknowledge that gender inequity and inequality exists. And the better delivery of healthcare will only occur or will only happen once we acknowledge that and we move towards a more inclusive atmosphere in our own practice and our own institutions and hospitals and centers. We now invite our members, if they have any questions that they want to ask, some particular information, if they want to have something clarified with our guest speaker, and I can also help thresh out some issues that might be important for our viewers. Okay. Winlove, we have some questions already in the chat box. Someone asked to be one of our members in the PSA would like to be clarified on what pansexual means.
Okay, when you are attracted to everybody, it means, for example, you know that somebody is transgender, you're attracted to that person, or you're attracted to a heterosexual. So it means that You don't care the gender, you don't care whether your partner is of what gender identity or what sex, as long as you are attracted to that person. Meron nga sinasabi yun na, may sinasabi nga na, wala akong pakailam kung ano ka. Basta mahal kita, you fulfill my life. Parang ganun yung pansexual eh. Kasi may makikita ka na parang kasama niya ngayon, kunwari, lalaki siya, kasama niya ngayon, babae. Tapos mamaya makikita mo, ang kapartner niya, ang kanyang karelasyon ay trans woman. Tapos biglang mamaya, lalaki naman yung kasama niya. So there are individuals who are like that. So that's the meaning of pansexual. Regardless of your partner's gender identity, you go with that. You're attracted to that.
We just love anyone, essentially.
Yep.
Thank you, Winlove. Another question from one of our team members. Should sex or gender in patient's forms be changed to something more inclusive? How do you propose to address this?
Correct. It doesn't need to be changed. It just everybody should just remember that sex and gender are not interchangeable. Kasi pag sinabing sex sa Filipinos, yung iba green-minded, baka isipin yung ginagawa sa kama, yung pinapasok-pasok, ganyan yung mga usual na mga tao, di ba? Kaya pinapalitan nila ng gender para hindi masyadong bastos. But like I told you, sex and gender are two different entities. So what we can do is just put sex. And then if you want to be more inclusive, you put gender identity. You'll be surprised with how knowledgeable patients are now. Patients are with their gender identity. For those who do not understand that, they can just leave it blank. But for those who know what you mean by gender identity, they will fill it up. And when they do fill it up, they will feel empowered and they will feel that, oh, this institution is gender sensitive. I don't have to put up a wall in this institution. I feel safe here. And I think that's one of the most important things that we want. We want to feel safe. Diba? Kaya yun yung question ko nung una. When was the last time you felt that you did not belong? In comparison to a time where when you felt safe, that everybody was harmoniously working with you. So yeah. So no need to change the wheel. Just use sex and don't interchange it with gender. And then you can add gender or gender identity in your forms.
Just to add on what you said, Winlove, there are actually some centers already that actually implement this, and to further clarify it for everyone, they place sex at birth to make sure that it's clearer to everyone what they're asking, because each sex technically would have specific health needs and health requirements. But then, because they want to be inclusive, they also add another question on in particular about their gender identity. Thank you for that. We have another question. What if a person had a sex change, like a man who had an operation to have a vagina? How do you call that?
We don't know, because you have to ask that person. Okay, that's the one of the cardinal rules of learning SOGSC. You can never assume just by looking, because just by looking, what you can assess will just be the gender expression, di ba? Masculine or feminine. That's the only thing you can say. Sometimes sex, you can even say if that person is not intersex, so you might have a wrong answer. So the easiest thing to decipher will be gender identity. Other than that, lahat you have to ask that individual. So for example, let's assume that that person is a male, born with a penis, and identifies as a woman. So that person is a transgender woman. And some transgender women would want to also match their genitalia with their gender identity. So they will have this gender reassignment surgery, or GAS, gender affirming surgery. Okay, gender affirming surgery. That's a more appropriate term. So they are still trans women, okay? But there are trans women who do not have problems with seeing their penis there, okay? And some trans women would would want to have their penis changed to a vulva or vagina, but they do not have money. That doesn't make them any less of a trans woman. They're still trans women.
Thank you very much for that, Winlove. So it's pretty complicated, but it all boils down to asking the involved individual how how the how one's soji SE is, and sometimes we make the mistake of making a decision on their behalf, but that's the thing. It's not for us to decide. Rather, we just have to be open for them and how they would present themselves. Okay. This is a bit complicated and maybe a bit controversial in terms of a question. But when love for a questioning adolescent, do you advocate a waiting period or giving them more time before allowing them to receive hormone therapy to change into their uh, to match their sex with with their gender identity?
Yeah, there are two fields of thought in regarding that question. No? In the U.S., where one of my mentors is working, in their institution, as young as 10 years old, they can give steroids to arrest puberty and then allow that person to decide. Okay. And then from their experience, most of their patients or clientele are very happy of the procedure because one of the uh, um, things that bring anxiety, for example, to a trans woman is to uh, to look like a man and then be want to be a woman but still look like a man. Diba? Parang yung frontal bossing, makapal yung kilay, and then yung jaw may Adam's apple. So that's one perspective. Start early. The other thing is other thought is to wait until somebody is of age of majority 18 years old because true the brain is plastic and that adolescent or that teenager can have different experiences during that time during that period that can help him or her mold his or her decision about herself. I think it's mostly really discussing these things to the patient. No? So you can discuss this with the child and with the parents o ano po ba ang gusto nyo kasi pwede po itong gawin natin. But in the Philippines, I have not yet heard of an institution giving such treatment as young as 10 years old. But there are already institutions, MCM, Manila's, what is
Medical
MCM?
Center Manila.
Medical Center Manila has a gender unit that does these treatments. Also, TMC, the Medical City has.
But that's
So,
nice to know.
two perspectives. Start early and then delay until after teenage years. But central would be to discuss with the child and with the family what they want to do.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification and by giving us the two sides of a coin and essentially what can be done on these very difficult cases. Like you said, it's not yet fully embraced, and even in developed countries with much more developed gender equity and gender equality practices, this is still a point of contention. Okay. Thank you, Winlock. Another question from one of our members: what is the suggested practice in terms of pronouns when writing literature, articles, or addressing an audience? Is them, theirs, they more inclusive than he, his, him, or she, her, hers?
I did not quite get the question. So, for example, if you are referring to somebody,
So try to centralize essentially see how it goes. Is there a suggested practice in terms of pronouns when writing literature or articles or addressing an audience?
well, usually what reporters or people who write articles do now is they really ask for your pronouns so that they get it correctly. So that's why one of the practices now, if you see in Zoom webinars or in profiles, I was so happy to see that in Instagram you can put your pronouns. So it kind of normalizes asking for people's pronouns because you want to address them correctly. Because some people will say, "Oh, mukhang babae." So tawagin na natin she or her. Pero sometimes, kahit na mukha siyang babae, nasa utak niya, lalaki siya. Or ayaw niya magpatawag ng babae. Merong ganun talaga. So, it's better that, like what Carl said, they have to be the ones to profess or to say out loud what pronouns to be used. So, I think if, for example, you use she or her and you're speaking to an audience and you don't know the pronouns of this person, I think that's forgivable, provided that this person has not publicly stated the pronouns that she or he wants to use already. For example, a public figure. Like very common si Jake Cyrus. We were in a contest, beauty contest, and isa siya sa mga judge. Tapos tinawag ko siya, "Hello, Charis." As in parang nagtinginan sa akin lahat yung mga tao, gusto kong kainin ng lupa. So do not forget that they don't want to be called certain names already. So ang pagkakamali ko doon, na natatandaan kong name niya, Charis, pero ang gusto niya ng tawag sa kanya, Jake. So dapat, yun yung itatawag natin sa kanya. Expounding on this, maraming magagalit na, hindi, wag kayong ambisyoso na yan talaga ang pangalan mo. But my question is, if you call somebody a different name, would that change your diagnosis or your history? No. If I call Carl, if Carl wants to be called Winona, and I call Carl Winona, if Carl gets hernia repair, will that change the management? No. Winona will still get a hernia repair. So that is one perspective. Also, for example, if your friend already, if you have a childhood friend, ang tawag mo sa kanya, Bebang, nung bata kayo. Bebang, Bebang, Bebang. Tapos 20 years kayo hindi nakita kayo as doctors na in a conference. And then sumigaw ka across the hallway, Bebang! Tapos lumapit siya sa'yo, hindi na Bebang tawag sa akin, Betty na. But still you insist on calling your friend Bebang, di ba masakit yun, nakakabastos yun kung ikaw si Betty. So you call that person kung ano yung gusto niyang pangalan na itawag sa kanya.
Thank you, Winlove. Say, I'll respond to what you said then. If you notice in my name right now in Zoom, on the Zoom platform, I have my pronouns there. Actually, hindi ko yan nilagay na actively under my name, but the Zoom app and the platform actually has a place for you to write your preferred pronouns or your pronouns rather. So you can put there how you want to be addressed in order to, and it's okay. It's understandable that you might not essentially remember the pronouns of another person immediately and all the time, and that's why you need cues. In international conferences, for example, those are trying to foster gender equity and equality. They do ask your pronouns during registration, and it's included in your name tags and your name badges and IDs. So natuwa ako rin when I discovered that these pronouns are being asked by the Zoom platform as well. Tapos, going with what Dr. Winlove said, essentially, even if the personal choices and decisions of your patients might not be something that you subscribe to, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, or whether there's a mismatch in their sex and their gender identity, it all boils down to respect, I believe. Essentially, if you can respect someone who uses a nickname or who uses a name that's quite different from their actual name, try to think of it that way. Try to change your framework or your mindset on how you call that patient. And trust me, your patients, once they realize that you are calling them by their preferred names or by the names that they would like to go by, they would respond to you fairly well. And in fact, when you try to wake them up from general anesthesia, they will respond better because it's the name that they prefer, it's the name they go by, it's the name that they would like to be called and to be addressed.
I'd like to add on that, Carl. No? So very peculiar. I like this example of yours because ang mga anesthesiologists, tama nga naman, you are the doctors who wake up the patient after a surgery. Now, for example, you have a trans woman, legal name is Ramon Cruz, and you call that trans woman Ramon Cruz, hindi siya mumulat kasi hindi na siya si Ramon Cruz. Or makita nyo, sobrang taas ng BP kasi buisit na buisit siya sa inyo, tinatawag nyo siyang Ramon Cruz. So that is also part of patient care. So that's why if you are not sure, you ask your patient, how do you want us to call you? So if she wants to be called Mona, you wake her up, and then she responds to Mona. Then that's a good thing for you, diba? Less complications, less trouble after surgery. Carl, there's a question here. Do you think it is appropriate for a trans woman to join an all-female beauty contest like Miss Universe? Very controversial. My answer is, one, I am not the Miss Universe organization. If Miss Universe organization would state that we are only requiring females, then a trans woman cannot join. But Miss Universe states that any woman can join, and a trans woman is a woman by that definition, then trans women can join. So unless Miss Universe, the organization changes its rules, specifically requiring females with vagina and vulva, XX chromosome, then any trans woman can join. And so adding to this will be trans children in sports. It has always been an issue, like, for example, a trans woman joining an all-female competition. In the States, they already have guidelines for this. For a trans kid to join an all-female event, that trans kid should be under therapy for at least 1 year. That's the time usually where the hormonal estrogen levels approximate that of the usual release of estrogen in a female. So we shouldn't disallow children from playing sports because of their gender identity. That is such an injustice to this world. Hindi ka pwedeng maglaro because kakaiba ka, you're different. So kailangan natin maging proactive in creating these inclusive policies.
Thank you, Wenlove. Those are actually real issues that are being met by the LGBTQ community in other countries. And soon enough, we'd probably be having all this discussion also.
Carl, if I may add again,
Yes,
the anesthesiology departments and all over the Philippines will soon be met with a deluge of these patients, sexual minorities, because the Philippines is catching up. And here in PGH, we are planning to create a gender clinic, a sexual minority clinic. So definitely you will be involved in surgeries dealing with sexual minorities. So it is about time that you understand about SOGSC.
Thank you, Wenlove. Going back to pronouns, is the use of they, them, theirs more inclusive rather than using he, him, his, or she, her, hers? Would you recommend us using these pronouns that are perceived as gender neutral?
I personally, my stand on that is I'm not comfortable being called they because my training is they, and they is for plural. And that's why I would say I am he, him, his. Okay, so the point here is you need to exert effort in knowing the pronouns of others so you will not be placed in situations like that. If you are hosting an event, if you are in a conference, get to know the people who are attending. Get to know the people who are attending and use their preferred pronoun. So it's good practice for your departments to ask your residents, your fellows, and your consultants what their preferred pronouns are. It might be obvious, matagal naman akong she, di basta sabihin mo, she ka. Okay? Kasi baka magulat kayo biglang, merong hindi pala she, he pala siya.
Thank you.
So I think that's a difficult question na parang instead of calling he or she, just call them they. Kasi baka may ma-offend ka naman na, bakit mo kami tinatawag na they? Or parang yung mga older individuals na taught na traditional English na, bakit they? Isa lang siya. So, yung question. So, you ask the person that you are introducing or talking to what their pronouns are. So, errors can be minimized.
And correct me if I'm wrong, when love, there's actually parang as...
You are wrong.
Oh, grabe siya.
Just kidding.
Hindi. Pero, di ba, traditionally kasi we've always seen or binary division na he, him, his, she, her, hers. But there's actually a proposed pronouns for for those that do not fall in that binary spectrum, like Z, here, yung mga ganon, ZE, tapos HIR, ganon yung mga pronouns.
Or some people would put, instead of Mr. or Miss, they would put MX. Those are for advanced classes. And I know it will take time for most of us to understand these things. But at least, bottom line of SOGSC is that do not assume, and then we are all different and we are all normal. And these sexual minorities have been accepted to be part of the normal spectrum of sexuality. They are not freaks. Okay.
Thank you, Love. So I'll just read some comments for you. One of our attendees would like to thank you for this mind-opening lecture that will help us understand more and empathize with our patients. And another of our directors says that she definitely agrees with you. And the first thing she asks her patient in the OR before she puts them to sleep is how he or she would want to be called or their nickname. It's actually the nickname that she would use when she wakes them up. So that's really good practice, and it's something that we should, especially for us who are involved in the training of the future generations of our residents in anesthesia and anesthesia practitioners, to do in their daily practice. Right. Yes. And another attendee says that it all boils down to acceptance and request. Hey, respect. Sorry. Okay. With love. Sorry. Is there any difference with gender neutral and all gender, for example?
Yeah. All gender is a more appropriate term, because when you use gender neutral, it means there's bad gender and there's good gender, and then there's gender neutral. These can be used when you are labeling certain facilities. So, common question is yung, saan magsi-CR ang trans woman? Diba? Nagkaroon tayo ng issue niyan before, yung kay Jennifer Diaz sa Araneta Center, tapos pinusasan pa siya, ganyan. So, the proposal of the Philippine LGBT Chamber is that you need not create a separate CR restroom for LGBT individuals. What you can just do is just relabel the present labels of your comfort rooms. So instead of PWD, kasi parang dun kayo sa PWD, wala naman kaming sakit at kami dyan. So what we can do is to label that facility as an all gender restroom with PWD access. Diba? It saves a lot of cement and labor if you just change the name of that comfort room. Now, all gender, ibig sabihin, whatever gender you are, you can go there, and it has PWD access.
And maybe it could be also good practice when to check on our own facilities inside our own hospitals or own centers, whether we provide these services, or if there's a safe space for all our patients and all our staff members, regardless of their SOGSC, to do their business, essentially. The next question would be, are there any research opportunities on gender and development or SOGSC for us anesthesiologists?
Well, definitely. we are doing a study now on profile, getting a sexuality profile of Filipinos. It's very difficult because it's going to be mostly online. That has been the main problem of the sexual minorities, the LGBT, because everything is parang arbitrary. About 10% of the population are LGBT. Is that true? Or baka mas marami? Or we also want to capture those who say that they are heterosexual, but they would have, for example, male to male sex. So we want to capture that. So what you can do is to get a profiling of your patients. You can start there, and that can add up to the universe of knowledge of sexual minorities here in the Philippines. If you review yung mga Acta Medica, parang walang masyadong studies on LGBT individuals, specifically in the UP College of Medicine and PGH. So that would be a good endeavor, a groundbreaking study, if you can do that.
Thank you, Winlove. And if I may add, if you look at literature also outside the country already, like the American Society of Anesthesiologists, they do have regular sessions also talking about SOGSC and even trans health for their membership, and it's something that you can explore also. And in fact, like what Winlove was emphasizing earlier, so GSE is for everyone. It's not exclusive, or it's not just the realm of the LGBTQ community, Q plus community. It's for everyone. So if you want to do gender studies or gender research, uh, there's a lot of opportunity for you. It was so nice listening to Dr. Kalimag during her lecture, during her earlier session, because it showed us how empowered female anesthesiologists are. But if you look at the current literature and evidence now, um, female anesthesiologists have been traditionally left behind in most institutions and in hospitals, and it has been actually proved, or in several studies, that it's even truer now during this time of pandemic. So it might be something that is nice to explore. Are we promoting, or how well are the females, for example, are being treated and being promoted in their respective places of work? Hey.
Carl, I have a question regarding the CR.
Yeah.
All gender CR means it's a room different from the men and women restrooms. Can, but if you only have one restroom in your facility, then it can be an all gender restroom. In fact, in the Department of Dermatology, we've been practicing gender sensitivity for the longest time, and we never knew it. Because we only have one restroom, and either male or female can use that restroom, man, woman. So if you have an extra restroom, like for example, the PWD restroom, you can change the label of that restroom as an all-gender restroom with PWD access. Carl, also there's a question, this is a very good question. Regarding patients using hormone blockers, is it safe to continue during the pre-operative period? Are there any guidelines regarding preparing patients under these drugs for surgery? Thank you. I am not very sure because I do not perform surgery, but I think it would be safe to say to know the effects of the hormones that they are taking. So if a trans woman is taking estrogenic pills, then this patient is at an increased risk of developing clots. So you can give pre-operative blood thinners for these patients. Also for trans men who are injecting testosterone, they can be more prone to MI. So these are the things that you want to watch out for pre-operatively. So that, I think that's a safe answer, but I haven't come across guidelines specifically pre-operative preparation for sexual minorities or transgender individuals who plan to undergo surgery.
On the top of our heads, that's what is commonly discussed in literature on gender and development and gender equity and and its relationship to health. But I'm pretty sure that there are a lot more. And if I'm gonna expand it, it also is now it also now becomes our opportunity as clinicians to advise our patients on their on proper health management, of individualized health management for them, including what they need to have screened and what they need to undergo, which is something that we normally miss if we have a very short period of time. But remember, what we want is to really build rapport with all our patients, regardless of their SOGSE. And this is one way for us to be part of the holistic care and management, right? Uh, so I guess it's already around 7 p.m. Win Love, thank you for lending us your expertise and giving us time on day 2 of our anesthesia week with the theme of patient safety always and beyond. And this is really truly part of the beyond. We'd like to thank you for sharing with us your the knowledge and information that will be useful uh, for our clinical practice. Thank you, Winlove.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you po.
For those asking if they log in late for the lecture and for the webinar of Dr. Kalimag and Dr. Mojica for this afternoon and early evening, it is available to be watched in our Facebook page. And again, um, we'd like to invite you guys to join us in our different activities this week. It will be going on from since yesterday. It has been going on since yesterday until Saturday with a mixture of academic and non-academic, scientific and essentially um, beyond the patient safety topics that will be open for everyone. So happy Anesthesia Week, everyone, PSA members, and to everyone, good evening, and we wish you safe, and PSA loves you, and we hope you know that. Thank you.